Alrighty, recap of the trading that we do daily here for this Tuesday, the 16th of November, 2021. Nice little day in the green that we've not had in a long time. Finally going after this pattern, just overall, not necessarily even a hard technical indicator, not a specific scientific function or formula. It's just the trend that I feel is there and that intuition based on, getting short a lot of these things. So finally was able to start in on that thesis for KZR today. We'll get into that breakdown in a little bit, but housekeeping first, of course, market internals on the day. Just for dollar volume, we are 9 minutes after the close here as of right now. NASDAQ $220 billion volume, NYSE $235 billion volume, and OTC's $2.7 billion volume, kind of standard. Right around the average range, I think, that we've been trending in the past few trading days, to say the least. Spy the little update today. Daily just coming right back under that 470 all-time high once again. Absolutely insanity. Let's get into KZR, and then I'll mention, some of the other tickers that have followed along the same thing that I was looking for, that I've just been spotting and kind of plotting within these past few days as well, that were other opportunities on today that I just didn't want to take it to keep my focus on one chart specifically. And tough in that situation sometimes too, because then it says like, oh, well, I just picked the wrong one. If these other ones went, but I just picked the wrong one on this day. If I didn't have a PDT account, and I could just be in all of these and manage my size that way. But I think, especially for right now, it's just very key for me to be in one of these, understand the price action, and not get just so wide-eyed by profit opportunity, not necessarily like a FOMO type of deal, but just too scatterbrained, I think is the best word to describe that. But CRTD, a chart to mention, absolutely beautiful. Lots of these were earnings plays. It is still kind of earnings season. So, and KZR was also an earnings play as well. But the same thing, CRTD, getting short pre-market at any amount of time, and you are sitting on a nice red trend. All of these charts are just nice, beautiful red trends. A little morning pop that tried to reclaim the VWAP on this chart. Then a hard pull, hard fade, easy sit as a short on CRTD. CYTH, a little bit slower, not the most awesome volatility profit opportunity, but the same thing, is a little bit of an earning play. But just easy downtrend. A little bit later of a morning pop that was a few minutes after market open, but the same thing of, getting short anywhere around 8. You're almost getting, if you kind of bag holding this thing into the afternoon session, you're getting still a 10% opportunity to the downside as a short on these styles of plays that just long bleeding faders. GOVX, oh my gosh, another beautiful one. Watch this one as it pulled up on the morning dumper chart, and not really so convicted to get short at what I necessarily look for as the entry signal of the failure to maintain that VWAP hold, as it would start to pull under here, because just whatever I think it was already in KRV at this point too. It also is 6 million floater and the same thing, but it is American biotech. We love to see those sketchy boys. Good news catalyst for the run up today as well too. It wasn't earnings news as well, so good percentage move to the upside that it had, closing from 3.8 yesterday, tapping to 6. Very, very nice on that one. And again, a little bit of a perk above VWAP that, what do you risk at this point as a short if you're already in this one from pre-market, trying to top any of these VWAP rejection here's, and if I'm holding a starter position or even my full size position like I did on KZR today on this one, God, am I risking that $6 high as a risk? For what risk reward am I looking for from that? But then again, too, of how I pair into with this short strategy and this kind of market sentiment short strategy that I look for. It isn't necessarily the risk reward every single time on these trades, but just the overall hit rate. How many times do I know these trades are just going to work out and die because they're crappy, sketchy, terrible companies? All of these are, and they're destined to die. But is that profit-taking opportunity intraday to the downside going to be there? And that's what I really care about and focus on. So yeah, little 3-minute rise above VWAP, not like it was pressing hard or shooting hard, but getting short anywhere around 5-6. Golly, that's still an awesome opportunity to the downside. Oh, so beautiful there. GRNQ, a little bit of the same thing. I actually played this one long that I'll get into. I'll get into it after KRZ, but kind of same thing, a little bit of a perk and just fell underneath. And I actually played it long thinking we could get another rebound of this one for the former runnerness, and just cut it pretty quick, as it wasn't looking like it was just going to jump immediately after it reclaimed that VWAP high. And for how low it already had spiked initially, I thought there was far more room in this one. That's why the reason for the small position size. But yeah, the same thing of getting short anywhere. I run this little double top here, 115, just a beautiful little trend and fall off. It's not like insane, awesome volatility. Like you're still proven right that you're picking. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like I'm just trying to look at it from the long side of, you got to be so perfectly executed on this time frame. Like you're looking on a dip and rip pattern, or you're looking for a breakout pattern, and identifying these key levels to be in. And this one, of course, a little bit of a double top. That's a short. As a short, looking at this one, saying, yeah, that's your key entry there. But the same thing of, I love the trades where it's the trend is your friend, and you don't have to be a ninja. You can just understand where it's going and hop on the train. And obviously, you want to get in and scale yourself more along the lines of, okay, what are the signs that actually identify this is a nice little top, a little spike to short into, this is a nice little entry point here, this is a good exit point here, all those different factors. But the same thing of, or just looking for, follow the trend and where it's going, where's the profit opportunity. Another chart of Beamy. Chris actually had a nice little dip and ripper, he said, on this one, just kind of buying underneath this 104 area here, selling that little perk above VWAP. You could look at it that way too. And this one and KZR I also had on watch from yesterday as a short, even though they were both earnings play, but following along the same lines of, they can kind of exhaust themselves. I've seen this time and time again that they'll exhaust themselves, do whatever they want to do after the close, whatever, if it's the news catalyst or even if it's earnings from the previous trading day, and then they just kind of weaken, come into the next day just like nobody really cares, nobody really wants it. Beamy was holding up a little too well, and that's why we did see some of this action for me, in my opinion, of why we were seeing it just wasn't dying off, continuing to press new lows. Did get a little perk attempt above VWAP here, pulls back and still is maintaining VWAP. Another perk attempt to 1.3, and that would have been a nice little long entry there, and then pulls all the way back down to that same little range just at market open. But then again, the same thing of looking at this scale on an intraday perspective, a market hours perspective, the trend to align yourself with is to the downside of anywhere, even like filling dead bottom almost at 107 here. If you're thinking this is going to break new low, which is where I probably would have been shorting, especially looking at some of my entries on KZR of my 4 entries, thinking, okay, well, I think this could be the start. We did pull back pretty hard here, but we could pull back here, getting a 107 fill, even getting short at that point too, and having to take the stupid train ride back up to where you could have gotten a nice entry point to start in. Still, this thing comes down to 95 cents. It's a beautiful, beautiful trade. It's very, very, how to say, easy to sit through if you're getting short at that point too, and then it's reclaiming and then hovering around VWAP as well. But, oh my gosh, just how do I do this more and more often, of aligning myself in the correct way? Because I think that's how I grew up in the 2020 market, of aligning yourself to the long side on anything. It doesn't matter if it was low float, high float, whatever ticker it was, everything just went up. And that was just so easy to say. You didn't have to be a good trader. If something was up in pre-market, you buy it at the open and it goes up later in the day. If something was not up in pre-market, you buy it, it goes up later in the same day. That was the mentality of, and it was very easy because, okay, this is working. Just aligning yourself with that trend was just the easiest part, and you didn't have to be so ninja precision with entries and executions. And obviously the veteran guys, the way more expertise guys that are so well versed in this, the multi-year guys in this game, they can obviously pick apart a chart and find those key entries and executions and different levels to spot in. But everybody and their grandma was making money because just everything followed the same trend. It was easy to tag alongside that. And I think it's, especially in this market environment we're in right now, the same ones and the signals that we're seeing of just the feel that these ones give off of, okay, we're perking in pre-market, we're doing whatever we want to do after hours, but when we get to market hours, we could have just our little tiny perks. We can have a little bit of morning volatility, but at the end of the day, we are just destined for death. We're just going to die and bleed and die out. So that is what I've just been continually building upon and keeping in the back of my mind time and time again with a lot of these charts, and finally being able to play it out today on KZR for a nice little trade, going with a lot bigger position size than I've been taking in the past. And I feel I do that. I don't know why I do that with shorts, because I think it takes me a lot more mental energy, or maybe a little bit just more mental capacity to use up a day trade, which would I would only do that with a short. Whereas to the long side, I'm kind of a little bit too much of a gunslinger and just like, oh, I'll take a $20 position size here. I'll do just whatever I want here at this point. And I might screw myself over a lot more times in a few more charts, like on GRNQ and then CYTO as well, that I may start to be stepping away from that a lot more if these shorts start to continue to work out more and more as they are like this. But just to break down this trade specifically, this was based on no amount of fundamentals whatsoever. This was not based on any technical factor. Maybe you could call it a little bit of, okay, we're developing this nice base here, and I could see a lot of longs looking for a support off of that, reclaim above VWAP, and then kind of whatever action from there. I was totally expecting this thing to break that. Not really in pre-market still. Is very nice to see we were breaking that, not only this 12.20 area, but that $12 level area as well within pre-market, which was a good sign to see. But just totally based on shares were easy to borrow, very, very cheap shares to borrow. What's the float on this one again that I forget? I think we're pretty not crazy low, which was another reason, 32 million floater. So not crazy low, but still kind of interesting enough to bring in longs to maybe think this one could have some amount of squeeze. But just, yeah, like through trade zero, very, very cheap shares to borrow, which gives me the indication potentially that it's not going to be so overly shorty manipulated that it could just have random pops and random squeezes, because there's a lot of different players trying to get short in on top of this one. And yeah, like I mentioned again, of in no way, shape, or form based on any fundamentals, technicals, like risk for me on this one. It was, I kind of broke a little bit of my rules too, in saying I did not establish a hard risk level as when I started getting my entries. I initially established my first position here at 25 shares, thinking, okay, we could just have a little perk down here, or not a perk. We could have a little just bit of dying into the open and may just start to fall off before I even get an entry, which I don't want to miss. So I'll start in with 25 shares here. We get a little bit more of a perk, kind of another bounce off of that little ranged low here. I get another 25 shares short after I thought that was just kind of another failed perk here at this point. And it looks a little bit clearer if we take out the scaling from the morning and pre. But we still held that level around 12.4. Had another perk that actually tapped above VWAP, but then pulled back immediately off of that big volume. Got another 25 shares off at 12.5 there. So both of those 25 shares were off at 12.5. Starts to pull back more, test that bottom. Again, I get another top tick around 12.38-ish or so for to close out that 100 share position that I did take out to reserve those shares. And then we get that nice peel off into the market open, and it's just a continual bleeding. Had this thing, and then even before then, as it's breaking down, even before market open, I'm going through all the situations in my mind, trying to play out every scenario of, okay, should we start to test this VWAP level? Should we start to test even defining it by a 12.7, 12.8 here? What am I looking to risk? What am I looking to do in that situation if we start to get some strength, if we start to get some bid support? Do I think it's just going to be a fake out? Do I think it's going to actually continue and have strength and I need to be out of the trade? What am I going to do in that situation? So going through all those scenarios in my head and continuing, I need to do that more and more, which I don't do with the longs, once again, because I do get a little bit more gunslingery with the longs and not prepping myself harder while I'm in the trade, when I do have time in the trade to play out all the scenarios and try and predict the future, in that sense of, okay, these are my defined risk levels. I know if it's going to 14, then I'm definitely going to be out of it. And I know if it's going down to $9, I'm definitely going to be out of it. But what's the happy medium? What am I looking for precisely? We got to find key levels to understand, because it's not, again, this isn't a hesitation game. I can't just be wishy-washy of, well, it looks a little weak here, or I think this could be a fake out, because before you know it, this thing could be absolutely blown by you. Time and time again, I've learned that lesson. But we had a nice, beautiful fade. Followed everything that I wanted to see, price action wise, for just the continual bleeding, continual pressing of the lows. A little bit wicky, but the first minute candle was going to be a great indicator for me in my mind too, of if it finds any amount of support, comes back above 12 hard, continues to hold 12 to that range that it was in pre-market, then I might be thinking, okay, now we might be tempted to get out of this one. Even if it does, in the afternoon session, still come lower than what my entry price is, I don't think I was in at the correct point on this one if it started to do that. But came along pretty much the T of what I wanted to see out of it. A little bit of short covering here, this candle with some nice volume that looked like it was going to tap above 12 and maybe offer a little kind of dip and ripper, reclaim to VWAP, but that got rejected again. Some other covering attempts that push it higher, maybe another spike to get short into that proved another low day break, another sell off. And I had a perfect little bottom tick here with a profit order in for 50 shares, half of the position at 10% profit, which was 11.10. So I got filled on those, which was awesome to see. But also a good note as well that, okay, wow, that recovered very, very quickly off of that 11.10. So was somebody else short in this one that was covering, or was that just an outsider that's buying more shares in this one? So then we're in that position here where it's just kind of holding and it, recovered, but it's still a lower high, and it's still, this top wicky green candle here, and then I'm gonna sell off, but bottom wicky red candle here and doji, and just like, okay, where is it gonna go? What are we gonna do? And maybe shoulda, coulda, woulda. I certainly felt the thesis for me on this one was hard sell off, the hard fade the whole day. Do not take off profits so quickly. I thought it was gonna be a rude slap in the face for me to be taking off the last shares anywhere closer than 10. I put my last profit target order at like 10.5-ish. I was initially like, oh, maybe 10.75 would be a good area, and then I was like, no, 10.55. Let's throw it in there. Absolutely. And I think this candle was actually like 2 cents away from that, so I would have been screwed anyway. But another lesson of, okay, what is greedy and what is knowing what and when and where the chart is going to do, because and then we get into this, kind of jumping around the place here, but then we do get this little squeezy here, and I had stepped away from the computer for a little bit to get some breakfast, get some other food. Luckily I think my stop was 11.70-ish, and I got filled 11.85-ish, I think, so right at VWAP almost. So a little squeeze there. Maybe that was more covering once again of more buyers or more short sellers coming in to take off some of those shares that they potentially had maybe overnight, that they were just kind of done. They wanted to go on with the rest of their day, and that was that buying pressure there and that big minute volume candle. But then there was no continuation from there. Very quickly back under VWAP, and then just continuing to die off from there. And the same thing I also wrote in my journal here, noting at 9:57 Eastern Standard Time, that would be kind of right around here for this perk, this lower day break to kind of lower high. The volume profile was huge, kind of right around this area. I think it must have been from the volume profile, what it showed on my scans chart. And I think that must have been from the after hours here, the reason why that for some reason was a level bit of resistance. So, and we certainly saw that as it pulled back hard off of there at that point too, and maybe why it curled back above that side on the actual squeeze after the morning session there. But I certainly liked I wouldn't be looking at this one hard maybe in the past because it was such a big dollar volume. Like, it was $352 million volume today that we ended up trading after the close here, 171,000 trades that I'm showing. And I normally would be kind of tempted to stay away because of how much attention, how much money was in this, but it's also a great helper for the bleeding, because usually most of the time when there's nobody really to bleed it, if it's just kind of, there's just a few scraps here and there of buyers and sellers, then sometimes the price action just doesn't follow along as it should, or just the way intended, that it can be just manipulated sometimes, and then you're psyching yourself out of, okay, well, is it actually having support, or is it just people are taking a break and they got to, like, one guy went to go to the bathroom, now he's coming back. Like, that's the entire selling market side of the chart for that day. But this one, where it's attracting more and more and more longs, continues to help that bleeding process and can kind of suppress these a little bit more. So sometimes that can be it can be a double-edged sword that, hey, it helps on your side, whichever trend you're following or whatever side you're on. But then, of course, on the reverse side of that, it can be your absolute detriment. But great overall trade on this one, and learning lessons once again of, should I be taking off full size right now at that 10% on this chart today? I certainly would have been a lot happier just taking off my full position size at that 11-10 area. And, maybe I could have held through that spike if I didn't have an order in, but I always have to protect myself when I step away from the computer. I'm learning that more and more. yeah, and I'm never going to be perfect. So I got to hold myself accountable to that too. It's easy to review this chart in hindsight and hold myself to that perfection to say, wow, well, you traded it incorrectly today, right? But at the end of the day, money is coming into my pocket, which is the only thing that I can ask for. That's all I'm trying to do with this. So great step again in the right direction off of this stupid path that just been continuing to be bashing my head into the wall over and over again on the long side with, and following along with these short plays. GRNQ I'll mention now. Man, that was a long-winded one on KZR. GRNQ, I saw it pop up on the scanner. It was pretty low for, this one is a former runner, if I do remember correctly. Yeah, a little bit of one and doners on nice volume. Of course, not the same amount of volume today since these big two trading days here. August 20th, it looks like, and then October 25th-ish that day was. So I knew it potentially had the opportunity to be a little bit more squeezy. I forget the float on this one again. If it did have the potential, 37 million floaters, so not the most crazy low float that it's needed to or had to go crazy, but just that intuition again of should these things reclaim so quickly, sometimes they can try to retest that little initial spike once again. So just looking for that quick play on this trade, small size trade again of, hey, that's a nice little trade. If it goes from 11-12 hours starting in position size to 11-2-2, 1-2, anywhere around there, that's a nice little risk reward trade. And yeah, it just kind of had that little attempt, and I thought as it was basing here once again, I'll get in with another. I had 200 shares initially, and then I bought in with another 100 shares at this point, thinking, okay, is it holding here? Could it develop a little bit more closer to market open? Maybe play off some of that, but it just didn't end up working out. So I cut it right at 110 there. And then, yeah, follow along the same lines of downtrend. Those were the trades on the day. I'll also mention NEGG, stupid trade that I had to cover up again. Mentioned this one from yesterday, that looking for that reclaim was looking for this one like a third day play. Didn't end up happening, but still was kind of holding around. Tui traded this one really nicely yesterday on Monday. He was out far before I got in and pointed out something that I internalized, but kind of just threw to the wayside too. That I even said it yesterday too, that this red candle, this high of day test, was the biggest volume candle on the day, and it still couldn't get to that $20 level. It still didn't have any more legs to continue on. So even though VWAP was holding very nicely, clinging to the underside to it for a long time, why I thought I was buying dip or why I thought I was buying any amount of bid support is just kind of a stupid trade. A little bit too big of a position size. I knew I had family coming over and I couldn't watch it, and why I didn't set a stop, why I didn't set profit target. But anyway, we get into this market open and it's kind of looking nice, like it's curling, like it based around this technical level. Again, like I mentioned yesterday, of this little 17 to 17.5 range here. I think then that previous day it had the same thing, but just a little bit of hard sell off out of the gate here this morning. And of course now it's reclaimed higher than that, not higher than, perked a little bit above my first entry yesterday, but on lackluster volume, just no volume today. So my best guess for this one is that it just becomes this little stalemate, and the daily just looks stupid and ugly, and it may be a while before that actual $20 break, if that does ever end up happening. But man, former runner, it's kind of unfortunate to see that this one's kind of falling along the wicked path of the just choppy, inconsistent, unpleasing to the eye price action like that. We'll certainly keep an eye on it, and if we're proven wrong, then we're proven wrong. Mentioning other tickers, OTC sector, OZSC, nice little second day play there, and call it a panic dip buy opportunity. You get a little stutter step here on the downside that I'll talk about before the initial perk, but then like, okay, here's a big volume candle that's showing you the turn of the dip. This respects that low, doesn't end up breaking that low, but the same thing of like, okay, well, it's not an immediate panic dip buy, or it's not an immediate reversal of that trend after a bit of a harder sell off, but it does have a nice little price percentage move opportunity back to VWAP. Falls off once again, and so this is kind of done for me. It's a shame it didn't have any more days left in this one for a harder panic to the downside, but then yeah, a nice little second day play, a little bit of a gap down out of the gate, or kind of it does respect that 78 level close from yesterday. Getting an entry anywhere around 8 8 cents here. It's really no surprise to me whatsoever that this thing perfectly top ticked at 8.8, a perfect 10% from that 8 cent level. Kind of worked that way for some reason, so I don't find any surprise from that whatsoever that it is perfect 10%, kind of from right around that, getting filled at that 8 cent level there. DPLS also want to mention for another this was a second day play from a runner again, still in this kind of crazy uptrend from where it started at the start of the year, but looking for strength from the nice move yesterday, respect of the red to green level, which this one did absolutely perfectly. Looked like it was selling off pretty hard with the volume in that first minute. I wasn't watching this one, still focused on KZR the whole time, but as I'm pulling it up here, man, awesome respect of 12. I think it looks like it has a perfect low of 12 cents there, and then beautiful trend to sit in all the way to 13.89 here right away in the morning session on that one. And then of course just fading, falling off, and unfortunate to see that they don't produce the nice pure beautiful panics, and it's just kind of a bleeding nobody can really be a part of it. Downside on this one. So that was it. Little preliminary watch list for me as of right now. CREX, keeping on watch for third day play. Pretty low volume today compared to what it did yesterday on Monday, but closing above the open price. Always good to see. They have earnings today. What's this little button say? Give me what you say. Oh, it's not going to give me. Maybe they have earnings, maybe they don't. But that could kind of taint the play if it does have earnings. And maybe this one does turn into one of the negs, or turn into a lot of, I feel like a bunch of these kind of what I look for as I just hold it to it literally of third day play, that anytime it has a nice perk in pre-market or anything in market hours, then you wait the next day, and then the day after that, then you start to trade it for third day play. So follow along if there's any bid support there, any more crazy volume to come in to push this one. That'll keep an eye on that. CYTO currently in with 20 shares. Yeah, 20 shares of just for how well it's holding up. Today was supposed to be that third day play, like I said, of sometimes I take it a little bit too literally that you just look for the third day. But the first day on this one, geez, on so many of these, it's just like this one had such a harder sell-off on that first day that it takes so much to get it going again, to have any amount of legs, or the shorts have already had their fun. And it's just like, why? You got to be so over the top greedy for you to be still back holding on this one for the nice percentage move that you got on that first day. So it's not like, unless they're just some absolute whale pigs crazily holding a huge big position, it's harder to get those squeezes, those little reclaims of any amount of price action there. But keeping our eye on it again. It's a 12 million floater, a biotech, and these moves here today, it's just, there's not a lot. As I'm watching it, this small amount of time frame that I've been trading it, not a lot of bid support whatsoever. Just a bigger ask, but yet it's still kind of holding these ranges for some reason. So maybe some manipulation going into that, but again, keeping our eyes on it. ELEK, of course, too, man, just absolutely insanity. 1,500% OTC mover. Very, very nice. So should it have a second day continuation? Should it have a little panic opportunity going tomorrow? We're hoping for a nice clean panic. Get something rolling back along those lines again for a nice little repeatable, consistent pattern that way in the OTC sector. But fun one to watch for how much that thing is moving. Absolutely insanity. But that is all I had. Nice little green day. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. Continuing the progress, continuing the journey. Thankful for it every day. We will catch you guys on the next one.